Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Newman's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Zara?
Hi, I'm Zara Altair. I'm a writer.
Doc?
Sheldon, Intrinsic Value SEO.
Terry?
Terry van Horne, SEO Pros.
And I'm Bill Slawski of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research at GoFish Digital. How is everybody today?
That's good.
Still kicking.
Nice here in Oregon. Still kicking.
So, y'all notice Google is having indexing problems with canonicals?
Right about it. That's a pretty elite group. 0.22% of the index. That's a pretty elite group.
So I read about those, and because I've been seeing people refer to that indexing problem on Twitter. But it is such a small group. I think it might be something that people would easily miss.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know about it. If I hadn't read about it, I wouldn't even be aware of it.
The people that would have an account and look at that stuff every week in Webmaster Tools would pick it up first, I would think.
Well, I've been going to Google Search Console at least once a week and checking the coverage tab to see what types of things stand out. There are sections, like 8 or 9 different sections there. Like raw anomalies is one of them.
Yeah.
And I just go through those, seeing if there's anything that doesn't look quite right. If it's saying that it's not indexing a page because the canonical is different than the one I chose for the page. Google has chosen one different than I have.
That would be in the anomalies you're saying.
That would be in the anomalies. And and there's another section that has something like that. But I'm not sure if that would be something that would show up in what Google was doing with this index issue.
It would be somebody who knows enough to look for anomalies in the crawl.
Right.
That's something, whenever I go to Webmaster Tools, I go to the crawl first just to see what's going on. Can I just ask how many sites you do that for, Bill?
Not too many.
Yeah. So then you might look at 2 or 3 of them a week.
I might look at 2 or 3 a week, yeah.
Yeah. That's why I follow people like Gabe. I think he has a lot more, and he's in there a lot. He seems to find a lot of stuff pretty quick.
Well, I work with 50 some other people who do stuff too. So
Yeah.
If it's just me and like a dozen clients, I'd probably be looking at all those every week. But
I guess I'm lazy. I never had I think 3's the most clients I would ever take on at once.
Yeah.
I just don't want to work that hard for any amount of money.
Sometimes you end up with clients who you hold on to for a while. You may not necessarily do a lot for them from month to month, but you answer any questions, resolve problems, stuff like that. You may not have active campaigns with them either.
Yeah.
But you end up with a few like that.
I still do one client. Not really SEO, though. Just manage the website, host it, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
One update a month.
Update the XML sitemap?
No, they update the website once a month. They change the specials. They change the specials. So I was making that a separate page each time, and then I thought, can't get links to that or anything, so I'll make it a static page and just change the content constantly.
So it's a page that the URL remains the same, but you update it.
Yeah. Well, part of it is static,
Yeah.
and then the prices change, right? And the models that are on sale. So I have a table of models with their data, and above it is some other services that they do.
And this way it accumulates backlinks. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
It also means you don't have to worry. You've got all these drafts that are in and out of your sitemap. Now it's one URL in the sitemap. You don't have to worry about it. That was the main reason that I made the change.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Pardon me?
It makes a lot of sense.
Well, that's a first for me, I bet, that someone said it makes a lot of sense.
No, it does. It was like, because the specials change, but the location doesn't. It makes a lot of sense.
So there was another story that was on Search Engine Roundtable this month where Barry reported that Gary Eels said that they would start annotating crawling errors. Do you think they'll start doing that?
They've done it at least once in the past. And that was...
Yeah, Gary's statement was a little vague, too. He said that they might, how did he word it? Potentially annotating the reports affected. So,
Here.
You know, even if they said they were going to, I would take it with a grain of salt. But when I see that potentially in there, it's just like, I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath.
Here's what I've seen about anomalies in the search results is that sometimes they stay there for a while and then all of a sudden they disappear. That's because they've solved the problem. And I think they annotate them. So that means there's something about those pages that is a bug. This is just my own thought. So they annotate it as an anomaly, and a page that was attached to this anomaly gives them some history to go on. Just a thought.
So you tell me that pages that might be in that search anomalies section aren't necessarily your fault? They could be some problem that Google's having?
Yeah.
It's causing the pages not to be indexed?
Yeah. One thing I've seen for sure in the past is just after when they used to do the Google Advanced, right?
Yeah.
After they did the Florida update, there was an anomaly for us SEO search, and it had to do with Wired Magazine had a URL that had the URL and then it had a question mark. In other words, it was dual, and both of them were showing up in the results in different places. So it wasn't indented. Okay, and it was the exact same page with a question mark, which Google does treat as two different pages, right? So the first time I saw it, I went into the search, hit the feedback, told them that this is an anomaly. This is why I believe it's happening. And within, I can't remember exactly, but it was very quick, right? That anomaly disappeared. And I knew every time there was a Google update, that anomaly appeared for 4 or 5 updates. And then all of a sudden it disappeared. And every time it appeared, it was gone within hours, which means there's probably a cleanup procedure that happens to clean those anomalies out. And they probably have them annotated so they know it has to be done.
I've seen patents refer to those types of programs as data janitors. They tend to clean up the web or the index of the web.
Makes sense.
And they do that with URLs that maybe have an extra parameter on them that shouldn't be appearing in search results like that. It sounds like they were fixing that temporarily, and then every time they updated it, it returned again.
Yeah. Every time there's a Google dance, it'd be there for just hours, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. It was almost like there was a cron job or something that ran and cleaned that stuff up after.
So you notice one URL, chances are there were a lot more than just that one.
Bruce Clay had one in there as well for some. I don't even want to go into Bruce Clay.
Okay.
Let's not journey down that path.
Mm-hmm. So there's news about Google Local, Google My Business, and them showing potentially showing the latest phone calls to your business.
Yeah, that's
Kind of handy.
yes. And actually, that whole program, it does a lot more than just that too. You can, I believe, hear actual recordings of the people on the phone, which, as someone who's been in the teleresponse business, that's like huge, because that enables me to, when I was in that business, hear what went on in the speech or in the interaction between the rep and the customer, and go to that rep and tell them what they could have said to better, do a better job of converting them. And also, if they're asking the correct question, which is probably number one on the list. Where did you find us?
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a client who refused to do phone calls, said they did it internally. Yeah, well.
Refused to do phone calls?
Pardon me?
Refused to do phone calls?
They did. They said they tracked them internally.
I see.
But, you get numbers from them, and then you get the numbers that Google says clicked on your button in the local results. And, we're not talking a few calls that aren't recorded. We're talking lots of calls that weren't recorded. And you don't know what time the call actually came in. Let's just say I didn't put it, I was skeptical of the reports I was getting.
I can't imagine any customer that has people receiving calls from customers. I can't imagine them being stupid enough not to want to track what's being said. What was the problem? What was the solution? Am I paying this clown in the operator room for nothing? That's just. You might as well just walk out and shoot yourself in the foot from the beginning.
Nepotism. It was all nepotism. They didn't want to have the.
Nepotism.
At what point does a feature like that go into more of a business consultation role than an SEO role?
Well, it's something the SEO should be telling their client, you need to do this so I can track your stuff better. Right.
It should be the business who's listening to those calls and seeing what the problems are and so on. And
Yeah. But sometimes if I had a client that was doing that, I would listen to it just, I don't know.
But the ideal would be if the SEO and the customer service supervisor both listen to those calls, and they can kind of educate each other. The SEO is going to learn more about the business issues, and the supervisor is going to learn more about the SEO impact of, where the call's coming from, where the problem arise. All that's just a wealth of information there.
In the conversation, you may pick up content that you need to add to the website to make it more informative.
Right.
Lots of good stuff. But in my case, I did that for many years, scripted and, listened to phone calls and taught people how to sell. Not tooting the horn or nothing, just saying that's what I did. I was pretty good at it.
Well, there's an awful lot of opportunity there for a business.
For sure.
Why would you lock that in a drawer and forget about it? That's just
unbelievable. And more telephone is the preferred. People don't want to fill in forms because they don't know where a form goes. They can block telephone numbers. There's also kinds of.
Hello.
plus, you can't ask a formal question.
That's right.
No, you sure can't. Right. So the telephone gets questions answered more quickly. It's very responsive. It's also human contact with a high impact on your on how customers feel about your business.
That's when you have a phone that isn't just an endless menu.
Right.
I've called places and wished I'd never called.
Yep. We've all had that experience.
But you don't know till you call, right? That's the problem.
Right. And how many times have we all had to click 9 to hear this menu again?
What is going on?
Yeah, but sometimes there are nightmares, like calling the California Division of Motor Vehicles. Their phone menu is a nightmare.
It is.
It's a endless process, and then they disconnect you. When you finally find the one you want to click, it disconnects you.
You choose that number, you're a busy signal, right?
I've had that happen on business phones. You go through the menu and then you get to not the DMV, but you go through the menu and you get to the right thing, and it was like, we're not answering calls right now, click, or something to that ilk, it's like torture.
You're on one of these
Gone through the tree.
And you're on one of these phone systems and you finally get through to a person and they say, "Oh, you've got the wrong number. You meant to talk to this person. Here, I'll transfer you." And they transfer you, and as soon as they transfer you, you hear the busy signal, which means you never got through.
I love it when that happens, though, and they say, "Okay, that's a different department. I'm going to transfer you to." They tell you the person's name, extension number, and they tell you, "I'm going to stay on the line and make sure they pick up before I disconnect."
Yeah, that's
ideal.
Polite. That is ideal. That doesn't always happen.
No.
Yeah, I always ask for the number they're transferring me to first.
Yep.
Yeah, just in case, if they give you a chance.
if they give you a chance. And the other thing that can happen is when they transfer you, you start a new phone tree series of, if X plus one, there's, and you're like, oh man, yeah.
I was listening to a Greg Gifford presentation right before this, and he's talking about how basically, the way that people buy things online has changed a lot with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Almost, his position is that every purchase begins with a Google search. Well, I don't know if I really buy that, but I think an awful lot of them do. But, there's so much now that is being done on mobile and with a call, because it's just less problematic than trying to do a text message. So, there's just so much information. If you can actually have warm body contact with a customer, it's such an opportunity to seize and maintain that person as a customer just by treating them right, by making sure you solve their problem, that you can't do via a form or an online. It's an ideal opportunity.
And I've been doing lots of online orders with curbside pickup from local stores. And the alternative is often if you look at somebody's website to see what products they have and you find something you want, you go to their store thinking that they might have that in the store. And sometimes the websites will say that it's in stock at a particular store. Just because it's in stock at that particular store doesn't mean it's on the floor. It's
right
in the showroom. It might be in the warehouse. So I've bought from Lowe's before and gone out to my car and sat in my phone and made an order and of the product that I wanted because it wasn't in the store, and they said it was in stock, and waited, did other things for an hour or so until they got it from the warehouse to the store. And I was able to buy.
I also, when it says in stock, I've also called the store to make sure that it's actually there,
Mm-hmm.
rather than make a trip to whatever to pick up a thing that isn't really there.
Well, like a Lowe's or a Home Depot will tell you that it's in stock at particular stores. Same with Best Buy.
Yeah,
It's in stock at a particular store, but it doesn't mean it's actually on the shelf.
correct. That's why I call. That is exactly why I call, because
I had a friend who worked at a Home Depot here in San Diego County. I had problems getting something from the Home Depot, the tool, a battery for a drill, and they showed it in stock. But when I called, they said, well, we show it in stock too, but it's not here. I don't know, there's a bug. I don't know why, but somehow it didn't get taken out of inventory. Who knows? Well, come to find out, when it's in the central warehouse up in North County, once that is earmarked to be transferred to store number ABC, it is transferred in stock. And it may be tomorrow morning before it goes in that trailer to get moved. And both the store and the warehouse show it as in that stored stock, which is kind of stupid. I would think, why would that not be transferred upon receiving?
Yeah, that's a logistics problem.
Yeah.
It needs to be fixed.
What that is, that's the warehouse manager sloughing off his inventory control issues on everybody else.
Yep.
I did make one purchase where I bought 3 items, and 2 of the 3 items were at a different store than the one I wanted to go to. I had originally gone to the site and it had a certain location, and I changed the location of the store I was buying from. And it still gave me products that were available at the first store. So my transaction went through, and they said, okay, your products are available. 2 of them at one store, 1 of them at the other store. And I was intending to pick up. I didn't want to tour San Diego County.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, the stores weren't even close together, right?
They were 45 minutes apart.
Ouch.
Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah, one store was 30 minutes to the north, and the other store was 30 minutes to the south.
30 minutes to the north. Where was that?
It was in Oceanside.
Oh, Oceanside. Takes you 30 minutes to get to Oceanside? Oh, Oceanside is big. Never mind. You know, when I was little growing up there, I was like, everything was on the coast, you
Yeah.
know, and then now an Oceanside address can be 10 miles inland. So
They can have you hop on Route 78 and go 3, 4, 5 miles in.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which can mean 45 minutes if it's the wrong time of day.
Yeah.
No, it's 45 minutes the good time of day. Longer at the bad time of the day.
So fortunately, I was able to call customer service and tell them that I still wanted all 3 products, but not from 2 different stores. And they said, okay, we can take care of that. We'll send you emails when they're all available from one store.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. And they actually sent me an email that same day. So maybe about 5 hours later than I had wanted to go pick things up, but still, it was the same day. That was good.
Yeah, that kind of stuff can be tricky. I worked for a site that the manufacturer had the stuff built in China, would give everybody these dates of when it was going to arrive, and it never arrived on time.
Yeah.
So everybody on the internet was selling stuff that wasn't even in the United States yet. Well-known company too. I don't know if they're still doing it.
That's another logistics problem because
No,
wanting,
it's poor management by the company.
well, it's poor management by the company, but the logistics theoretically should take it from the manufacturing to the delivery to the customer and every single part in between. So if there's something missing in the logistics, then yeah, the management is all screwed up. Nobody knows where it is. Every day, you know, because if you're sending it from a manufacturer in China, say, you know, and it coming by boat to the U.S., and then there's the distribution warehouse somewhere, you know, or where it goes before it actually goes to a retail outlet, you need to know where it is every single point along the way. So if that's not working, then the logistics system is screwed up.
I remember
In China.
I remember 5 or 6 years ago when Walmart decided that they would have all their suppliers include RFID tags in all their products because it wanted to track where everything was at all times. They ended up not doing that, but I think it's possibly a good idea if they could have gotten people to do it.
It probably, well,
I would imagine it would involve a significant cost increase.
Yeah, and you
That
know,
is
somebody
easy.
forgets to take that tag off when an item is sold, and you know, the alarms go out as the customer goes out the door. That's not a good thing.
Well, RFID tags are just
data.
they're just one-way signals. you bounce signal to them, and then that gets bounced back and picked up. So
But you
they're
know
not,
where it
they're
is.
not transmitting all the time.
Yeah, and it's simple enough to take it out of inventory when it's been sold, so that it wouldn't ever be signaled at the door. You know, it's just basically for inventory control.
Right. So it'll trigger antennas when it's on railroad cars, for instance, or in trucks. So you can track the delivery of things at different points, right up to your warehouse door.
So how does that work when there's, a truck full of 1,000 items, each one with a RFID tag, all 1,000 trigger at every point?
All 1,000 of them triggered at every point.
Okay.
Yeah.
An interesting sideline to that, Bill, I read an article here a few weeks ago for tracking shipping ocean freight.
Yeah.
They actually have a satellite system. There's not a lot of them, but there's a few satellites in orbit now that can place a vessel within 30 meters by RFID, a totally passive system, as opposed to a GPS signal. This is just an RFID, so this one satellite can look down there and track, potentially hundreds of vessels, all very precisely by location, simultaneously, which is kind of cool. It opens up an awful lot of possibilities.
So I did research on RFID tags when I worked for the court.
Okay.
Because one of the things we were considering doing was putting tags in every case file. So we had shelves full of case files, and ideally you could walk down the aisleways that the shelves were around with an antenna, and you could go back after that walk. You go back to a computer screen. It'll tell you all the misfiled files on the shelves.
Oh wow, that's pretty amazing.
That is, yeah. And how to find something. If somebody was looking for a file from 1947 in the archive, back, you wouldn't have to have it located in the system. You could just go back in there and it would tell you which box to open up. That's kind of cool.
That's very cool.
It was never a good idea to have to delay or put aside or postpone a criminal case because the case file was missing.
Yeah, not a good idea. Not a good idea.
That'll draw the ire of a judge.
Often the cases were missing because the file was up in chambers.
Ah.
Really? Uh-huh.
In a pile of other files like this, right?
Right.
Or wouldn't you be sending files to lawyers as well?
No, because those files wouldn't leave the courthouse.
No,
they're courthouse records then.
Right.
They're not supposed to leave the courthouse, but every now and then some detective.
Well, we had a pre-sentence office, and they had their own files for people, and those files, I'm not sure if those ever disappeared to places. Those are supposed to be court records too.
So is that system still extant, that they have all the files tagged like that, and you can identify the misfiled files?
We didn't do that because it would have cost too much. At that time, each individual RFID tag was $1.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
that could add up in a hurry in a big courthouse.
If we had 15,000 new cases a year, that was $15,000 in those files. And for some reason, that was not affordable. the amount of time we spent trying to find files, it really would have been helpful to do it anyway.
Lost
Right.
productivity. You make
Yeah.
it back in productivity.
Could be
Yeah.
a difficult idea to sell, though.
Yeah.
Right, but it makes a lot of sense because
They
lost
just
files are a
the
nightmare.
guys in the accounting would just say, "Well, tell your clerk to move faster."
You could
Don't lose the files.
you could have a clerk go up to chambers every day, walk around with one of those wands, the antennas, and know all the files that were up in chambers and which office they were in, which would have been beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about inventory control. That would have been awesome. I mean, we'd have calendars of cases. We'd have arraignments, which would be 100 people in the courthouse at a time. And we'd have to gather all 100 files for those cases. For somebody to go up to a courtroom, in case the judge wanted to see part of their file, which they often would. They would want to see paperwork for it. You know, why is this guy in here? Let me see the indictment. Let me see the paperwork from the attorneys. And so it was essential having access to that type of information.
When I was in the financial services industry, and I had people come into my office to help just manage things, and filing was a filing Nazi. I said, you know, I don't want you to just make it go away. I said, when the phone rings and that client is on the phone, I have to be able to go like this and pull out their file and talk to them. I can't tell them I don't have their file in front of me. I mean, that doesn't work. And but it's a really hard, and I said, you know, take as long as you need to file these things alphabetically, which that was the system by client last name. But it's a really hard thing for people who aren't involved to understand how important lost files can be, because a lost file can just screw up everything, you know. No, but the same thing happens. On a computer, unless you have some kind of system and organization and stuff of storing files. It's really difficult to find files if you don't have a system.
You mean you can't put everything under M for miscellaneous?
No. Oh my God. I know a long time ago I worked for an attorney, and he had an online filing system so that every document had a category to subcategory to subcategory and a subcategory, so that it would like 4 levels of filing on the computer so that he could find documents. That's Terry. Yeah, because it's the same thing as losing a physical file. If you know that, I had an attorney friend, and he used to say, the file's here somewhere, you know, but when they couldn't find the file and the client was there. But it's the same thing on the computer. You can waste so much time when your filing system isn't organized. Like, you know, it's like, I did that 2 years ago, and I know it's there, but I don't know where it is. It doesn't help. You know?
So we had another story from SEO Roundtable again, where Barry was telling us about submitting URLs doesn't mean
Lead to Google
that Google
reprocessing.
will reprocess your XML sitemap. I have in the past changed links on pages and reprocessed the URL in the hopes that Google would catch the new link, the new URL. It seems to work most of the time.
You use that from the Fetch's Googlebot?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's now just submit URL. It used to be Fetch's Googlebot, right?
Yeah.
Oh, see.
Yeah.
That's how long it's been since I was there. I like that option because it also follows all the links on the page and updates the link graph.
Yeah, maybe with the Fetch's Googlebot it does, but
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that's what I mean.
I'm not sure it does that still at this point.
Does it still ask you offer that option?
It doesn't tell you that they follow the links on the page.
Oh,
It doesn't
that's
offer.
in-
It doesn't call it Fetch's Googlebot anymore.
right. So the program works differently than it used to.
It's you're submitting a URL for indexing.
Right.
You're adding it to a catch to be indexed, but usually if you use Google Search Console to get a page into Google's index, it'll usually show up in there fairly quickly,
Yes.
depending on the site. Some
Yeah.
sites get indexed quicker than others.
Yeah. I like the Fetch's Googlebot. It had that option to also follow the links on the page. That was really nice.
I think they got rid of that wording because they didn't want to make promises to people.
Promises that couldn't keep.
Right. So if we call it Fetch's Googlebot, people are going to expect us to go right out and call the page right then and fetch it as Googlebot. So now you're submitting it for indexing.
But then, oh, okay, so the program does run differently because when you fetched this Googlebot, it would show you how the page would render as well. Does it still do that?
No.
Oh, see, that was a gem of I use that on every new page, every new workup of a template. You have to check that to make sure everything renders properly.
There is a See Live type choice.
Oh, okay. I guess I should actually go in and use that part again. I just look at the crawl and the rich snippets and the stuff I'm actually worried about and trying to work on.
See, I think the wording is test link live or something like that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
should actually, I need to go in and refresh. But when they were constantly changing it, I didn't want to waste my time trying to, learn it more.
Mm-hmm. Well, not too much has changed, but none of that makes sense that they wouldn't recall your whole XML sitemap every time you submit a new URL.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine why somebody would think that submitting a single URL is going to make them go crawl all your sitemaps. That just doesn't gel for me. I mean, that's kind of a broad assumption.
Yeah, I used to submit a sitemap every month, and it did get indexed every month.
Now,
Not on the date that I submitted it necessarily, but it did show that I was indexed every month. That was also so I could show the client, this is what I did, right? And this was the result. I was getting 97% indexing on most sites that I was working on.
but you're resubmitting XML sitemap monthly.
Monthly. I would run it through Screaming Frog, look at it, take out any of the stuff that I knew was always there. And, every site got a couple that you just don't play ball. So I clean them up and resubmit it every month. We also every month added 3 or 4 articles, right?
Yeah.
That way I could also make sure that the new content was in the sitemap. And sitemaps are something I'm not going to leave up to any plugin and any. Just not going to leave that up to a plugin. Too important.
So many of them screw them up.
Well, yeah. But it's also, if you do it with Screaming Frog, you get a lot of data in one place every month that, you can look at that and compare things. I'm sure when you have problems, you have that to look at.
So in effect, you're doing a mini audit of a site monthly.
Yeah, you could say that. And it was part of the service. Clients knew I was going to spend X amount of time doing this. It was in the bill every month. To me, that's, I take it, I should be like the telephone company as far as billing clients. So I tell them everything I did, how long I worked on it, and,
Yeah. And part of what you were doing is something that isn't said, but it's like if you see something's out of place, you would take action.
Right. So,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Put it in the report, tell the client, this is what I found, this is the action we're going to take. Because I also had a monthly meeting with a client usually as well. I didn't have to talk to them much more in a monthly meeting. They didn't last long if I had to.
So you're sort of in a maintenance mode?
Yeah, I might do it weekly in a new client, getting things set up, seeing.
Yeah.
As you make changes, you want to see how Google reacted to them.
Yeah.
GFC is usually a good place to go and look.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. When you did that monthly, would you show them analytics type information too?
Yep, the monthly report had top 10 pages landed, that sort of thing from the indexing, any indexing problems. Once I got up to over 95%, I just said you're pretty much fully indexed. I might, if I got a notification from Google, include that in the report. And if they ask for the email, forward it to them after. Keep all those. One thing I have found is I get a lot of mobile issues. Well, not a lot. About every couple of months, I'll get mobile issues. It says my pages aren't mobile friendly. I go and test them and they're fine.
Uh-huh.
Anybody else find that?
I've had that happen. I don't know how to fix it.
You don't do anything.
Yeah,
You don't.
ignore it and it'll go away.
It'll go away.
No, quite often it does.
A lot of times, I've come to the conclusion many of those times that it's their mobile testing tool that's unreliable.
Okay.
One error I get all the time is items are too close together and the font's too small.
When I have issues like that, I'll check plugins and stuff like that to see if there are conflicts or conflicts with themes, because sometimes those cause those mobile indexing problems.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
I
you resolve.
just run it through again and it says it's fine.
You run it through again without doing anything, and it says
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, because I noticed they have a thing that says test the live page.
Okay.
Always run that one first before you do anything. And that's
Oh,
when
I
it says,
see.
oh, this page is valid.
It could be a problem that did exist, but now has been resolved. Like Bill says, that possibly a plugin got updated, so now that conflict no longer exists, and now the page is
Maybe
just fine.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, when I see that now, I used to go nuts and start playing with the HTML. Then I don't know, I just figured this doesn't look right. I fixed this a month ago. And go and test it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So you always should test live pages first. Also, with structured data in their tools, try and test live pages. Don't go by what they have in their index.
No, it's never been reliable. In my opinion.
There was something else I did the other day, and I found the same thing, that I had to update something in order to get that to happen.
Their page speed test tool is also, on a good day, highly questionable.
Yeah, that's for
Most days,
sure.
it's just pure crap.
You can run it 3 or 4 times in a row and get 3 or 4 different sets of results.
Massively different results, yeah.
Yeah.
And they won't necessarily have the same stuff in it either, which is even more confusing.
I just stopped using that years ago.
It's been a long time since the days of running page speed and running Y slow and making sure both of them work well.
Mm.
Yeah, pick one.
So there was another article that you sent to us, Terry, about rich snippets,
Yeah.
and it was a list of reasons why rich snippets might not work.
Yeah.
They included things like, one of them was you use profanity on your pages.
Yeah. That makes sense, though,
Yeah.
because of the Google index, right? Has that censor.
It's an offensive content blocker.
Right. It used to be basically so kids didn't see porn back in the day.
Yeah. But then they said, okay, some words mean different things in different contexts. So
Yes.
sometimes in this context, it might be something you don't want to say ever. In a different context, other contexts, you use that word every day.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
There was another thing that she mentioned in that article that kind of got raised my eyebrows. You're using multiple markup languages.
Yeah.
And I don't recall, I know I wouldn't be able to find it, but I do recall something on the Google blog some time, probably a couple of years ago, about you being able to use, let's say, RDFA and microdata.
Yeah. I use schema and RDFA when Google said that they wouldn't use the schema breadcrumb. They didn't use it for a little while. They suggested RDFA. I use schema for everything else, RDFA for my breadcrumbs. And I had snippets in the certs.
Yeah,
So I know that one isn't true.
So I really question that one being.
Yeah, I'm skeptical about that one. I can't say it's true or not true because.
Right. So I've had pages that had microdata and used JSON at the same time.
Yeah.
And it worked, but I realize I much rather use JSON all the time.
Yeah. And I think now JSON will do just about anything that we want in terms of rich snippet.
Because Google's decided they prefer JSON all the time too.
Yeah, because they were suggesting they would only use markup when JSON first came out.
Yep.
That's
And
why
I wish more schema had examples of JSON.
yeah.
There aren't enough examples.
The other thing that I wasn't too sure about, now that we're really talking about this, I only mentioned the one about the XML sitemaps and last mod, but
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought. But there is something else now that I just realized didn't make sense either.
Something that said that Google uses last mod from XML sitemaps, except they don't.
No,
They
exactly.
definitely have said they don't use it. In
Yep,
some sitemaps.
they were very clear on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I believe they do use it when they're actually crawling the site.
You think so?
Yeah, if I'm Google, right, and I have to index billions of pages, right, and I'm trying to keep things current, right, one way that I would test is to say, check the last mod and pages that were coming up. I could skip those because they hadn't changed, right? That's day-to-day type stuff, not a major update or refresh. I can see them doing that for sure. Makes a lot of sense than downloading all that stuff when you don't have to, running all those processes to index it because you don't have to, it's the same content. And their server has told you that.
But how much confidence can they put in that date? Because we know there was an awful lot of jacklegs out there that would just go through and change that last mod date just to try to
Can't
fool.
change that. Yeah. That's not willy-nilly stuff, Doc. We're talking you have to go into the server. I had to have my brother do it. I did not know how to do it.
Oh, I wouldn't know how to do it either, but I know it can be done. No, I wouldn't be able to do it, but there were a lot of guys out there trying to play that, you know, to game it, you know, but I don't understand why they would not. I would think Google would be able to fix that issue without saying we're going to ignore last mod, because like you say, that last mod date could be very useful to them. Why, you know, in terms of minimizing their resource utilization, it makes sense they wouldn't want to go crawl something just to see if it needed to be crawled, you know.
Yeah.
At one point,
most servers is not to give a last mod, to just show it as today.
At one point in time, when Google was creating things like Google Webmaster Tools, they had a system developed where they could say you could enter, and this was never put in place. It never happened, but they would allow you to tell Google to only call your site between certain hours.
Oh yeah.
Only call the site between midnight and 5 a.m.
Yep.
Say, for instance, and they never went through with that. They did patent it. There is a patent that says that they can do that, but they never implemented it.
Yeah, because no one would want their stuff to be indexed during the day. However, if you're doing worldwide, that ain't as big an issue.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah,
sure
everybody
they have their own schedules anyhow.
It's much easier for them to just do it whenever they have a chance. Yeah. Instead of trying to provide for everybody.
Right. And that wouldn't necessarily be very hard to figure out.
What's that?
If a site was doing correct last month, because every time you got the page, it would say that it was created on that day. That kind of tells you they're not using it. However, if you got some that said a date, in the past, and that date didn't change, they could identify sites quite easily that did use it properly. Just saying. To me, I always think of anything Google does in cycles and bandwidth. Because bandwidth's probably one of their biggest expenditures.
So I do a number of searches every few days where I want to look at query terms that are showing up within the past month, within the past week, stuff like that. And I'll do those past week searches, and I'll see pages in there that say they're from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's likely Google's not basing that within the last week based on dates on the pages.
Yeah.
Or rather dates on the server, last modified date. Because 2000
on the page is what you're saying.
Yeah. So 2010 is not the last week.
Which is why, that's why people do that with the last month.
Yeah.
However,
also
if there was any importance at all, I'm sure Google could figure out which guys were doing it right and which guys were doing it wrong. That's not a hard task.
It's not a hard task. It's one that they haven't taken, put on their to-do list.
All right.
Yeah, but all you have to do is look at the page, see the date. They know when they indexed the page. And if the last month was different every time they go to the page, what do they know? That the last month's crap. Right? Once you have last month, it should stay that date. Well,
So
it should
next
stay
time it's
that
changed.
date in perpetuity, probably, or until you install it on a new server. So if you reinstall your server, that last month, I believe, gets updated. Not sure about that, though. Been on that sewer so long.
Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour. So thank you all.
Got through all of that.
And thank you everybody for joining us today. And come back and see us next week.
Yeah.
Everybody have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks.